everyone, Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. I'm excited to be back today with another client interview for you guys. And today I'm excited to have John on with us. And John is someone that just finished going through the full-time 2023 recruiting process. And, for those of you that are going through that right now, you probably know it's been a very tough market environment. And luckily not luckily, he obviously worked very hard, but John was able to come out with a very, very good offer. And so I just wanted to get him to come on here and just talk to you guys about his experience, share how he was able to do that. And, we're sitting here in late 2022 recording this, but I can almost guarantee that this is not going to be the last time that we have a tough job market, right? So even for people that end up coming across this interview in the future, hopefully this will just really help you guys out in terms of knowing what to do and how to approach the process. And so with that said, John, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us here today. And if you don't mind, maybe you can start off by just introducing yourself a little bit so that our audience kind of has a sense for who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sam. Really happy to be here. So a little background about myself. I'm currently a senior at NYU studying finance, so in their business school. And a little bit about my recruiting journey. So when I was a sophomore turning into junior, I was basically looking at opportunities in investment banking, hedge fund, and asset management. And at the time, I knew that our school had a very heavy focus on investment banking. But personally, I also was really, really interested in asset management and public markets. So I was really indifferent towards like what type of offer I can get throughout the recruiting cycle. And as a lot of people might know, recruiting is really like a luck game in a sense. So you really can't choose your offers unless like you're like a superstar, which I really wasn't. So for my junior summer, I accepted an offer to work at a long only asset management firm in New York, which is pretty good, but at the time, I was kind of considering what my career options are, and I knew I wanted to have more optionality out of undergrad rather than just to stay in public equities or asset management. So, and I guess during my junior year, I kind of came across Sam, and I decided that I wanted to give full-time investment banking another try, and that's why I joined the program. And obviously, the result I have had is like incredible, and I really can't thank Sam enough for all his work and all his help. And I honestly don't think I could have landed the offer I have without his help. But that's on a high level, but happy to dissect more into the background experiences.
Awesome, man. So I guess on that note, I guess before we dive into that, thanks for the kind words, by the way. What was the offer, or what kind of offer did you get?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I'm pretty lucky. If I were to say, so I got an independent advisory firm, elite boutique, some people might call it, firm that I really, really like, and the people are incredible, and in one of their strongest group in the United States. So I was really, really happy with the outcome.
Got it. Okay. Well, first of all, that sounds awesome. So congrats again, obviously. So I think for you, you're a little bit unique in that a lot of people, when they come to us, they either were recruiting for the first time, or maybe they weren't recruiting for the first time, but they tried recruiting on their own. They didn't get in at all, and so coming to us for help. For you, it sounds like you did try to recruit for banking also for your junior summer internship, but you were also recruiting for asset management at the same time, and it just turned out that asset management was the offer that you got first, and then so that's just the one you went with. Is that right? Is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And then so like, I think this would be an interesting question. As I don't typically ask this question, but I think for a lot of our listeners it would be beneficial, which is a lot of people sometimes ask us like, well, what's the difference between asset management and investment banking? Like, how do I think about it? Right? Like, I feel like for a lot of students, maybe like kind of how you were back then, which is to them, it all kind of sounds the same. And so they're kind of like indifferent between the two, or they're like, I'll just take like whatever I get first. Right. Now, obviously in hindsight, you change your mind, you decided like you want to go to IB instead, but like, what would you say is the biggest, how would you like explain to a beginner the difference between the two? And then also like, what ultimately made you change your mind even after? It sounds like after you accepted the offer, but before you even started
Mhm.
the internship, right?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean that's a great question, Sam. And I guess I can give more color towards the decision ultimately. But for a beginner, I would say in the financial services industry, you're essentially serving a client, and for investment banking, that is helping corporates, shareholders, and then even financial sponsors in transactions. And for asset management, your clients are essentially the pension funds, the financial institutions that have money that wants to be allocated, and these are type of your mandate, and depending on the risk tolerances, you invest money into different asset class, different strategies, given these type of mandates. And for me, I kind of touched upon this a little bit earlier at NYU Stern. The consensus was to do investment banking. Like it's known for like a big factory for investment bankers. Like if I have to count, there's probably like 100 investment banking analysts every single year, like guaranteed to every single bank in the United States or in like Asia, Europe, etc. And I think at the time, what made my decision was that I was really, really interested in financial markets. I had a previous equity research internship. So at the time when I was recruiting, I thought I would be happy with both outcomes. And actually, IB was a little bit more unlucky for me. For example, like I was going through a lot of the processes for some of the boutiques like PJT, like Citi, Bank of America, Barclays, was able to make it to the Super Day, but wasn't really able to secure the offer. And sometimes I ended up on a wait list. So that was kind of a little bit frustrating. But I was definitely having a lot more success in asset management and hedge fund recruiting. And honestly, I thought I was going to join a hedge fund. That's pretty famous in the industry. But I guess they took more diversity candidates. That's what they told me in an email. Believe it or not,
Wow.
but ultimately, asset management was the move. And the reason why I knew I wanted to kind of re-recruit for investment banking, like you said before my internship even started, is because I kind of realized that in asset management in general, like there's a shift towards passive management, like indexing rather than active management. And in a way, the industry becomes like the biggest player wins all, and the smaller players are just like crumbling for the lower mandates. And I feel like as a PM in the industry, like you just have a lot more pressure. And at the same time, the firm I was going to intern with had a news that they're going to diverge some of its assets, or they're going to outsource some of its assets to external managers, which means back then it had a lot more opportunities when they had the full amount of assets versus now they're going to only have half of the assets, which also jeopardizes the career outlook at the firm, even if I got a return offer. When I was at that was how I made a decision. So I thought banking is really like a great fit for me to like be more agile and have more positions and options after 2 years. So also I think, Sam, like you kind of our situation is a little bit similar because you said in 2007 Bear Stearns was collapsing, and then like you kind of knew you weren't getting that return offer. I also had some type of like linkage to back then. I was like, oh shit, I might want to like re-recruit anything, like it might not be IB, but like I knew I need to have a second option. So that's why I ultimately joined the program.
Gotcha. Okay. So you basically thought like way ahead, like I feel like a lot of people in your situation, once they get their offer, they will just kind of, I guess, be content and just be
Mhm.
happy, right? And just like, all right, I got my offer,
Right.
my job is done. And recruiting, no one likes recruiting. Like nobody wants to recruit more than they have to, and they'll just
Mhm.
like go back to being a college student. But it sounds like even after you got your offer, you didn't just kind of like rest on your laurels. You were like thinking about like the future at the firm, thinking about like the prospects, thinking about like macro trends in the industry, and kind of like where to
Mhm.
fit in. So that's honestly, I mean, props to you. Like I think that's a very mature thing to do, but I just don't know that most college students would do
Okay.
that. So, but
Mhm.
okay. So then you came into Wall Street Mastermind, I think in like late April of junior year. So it was like, maybe a
Mhm.
month before you got out of school, right? Before you got out of junior year.
Mhm. Absolutely.
I'm curious, like, you know, you you recruited for IB before, and it sounds like you were getting interviews from a lot of the biggest firms. you even got to the super day for a lot of these firms. And so you were like, and you were on the wait list for some of them. So you were like pretty close, right?
Hmm.
So like, what made you want to join Wall Street Mastermind? Like, why not? I feel like a lot of people in your position, they might say like,
Hmm.
hey, I got so close this time. Like,
Hmm.
I just need to work a little bit harder. And then like, next time I'll get better results. Like, what
Hmm.
was it that made you say, hey, you know what? Actually, no, I'm gonna like reach out and work with these guys.
Hmm. Absolutely. So I actually had some mentors that were like really close helping me that were in the industry, like they were just alum and so happens to be like mocking me, giving me advice on my behaviorals and stuff. But I feel like at the time, like I was getting this rejection and waitlist. I feel like my technicals was definitely okay, but it might be more about like how I came across in interviews and like the way I speak my behaviorals, because ultimately it's the behaviorals and your stories that wins the offers. And in retrospect, I feel like my stories back then was like super super boring. Honestly, like if I have had to read them again, like I think in the program definitely learn how to be more interesting in your story, and like the way you deliver these stories is also very important. I feel like a lot of the candidates, especially at my school, because like we're such a factory, you'd be stupid paying how much money for this program. But also, I just want to share another perspective because honestly, like Wall Street Mastermind is not the only type of recruiting agencies I know and discovered, because I know like other some of the ones in Asia, like it's actually really really popular, and they also place quite good for candidates, but they actually charge like twice more than twice of your price actually.
Wow.
And actually I also talked to them, but I feel like the culture vibe between me and those institutions wasn't really unfit. But when I was browsing through Wall Street Mastermind, I feel like people are more humble. Everything was genuine. Like people were straight shooters. Like for example, when I was doing my initial call with Joseph, I was like, "Hey, I got this okay summer internship. Like, is it possible for me to like land like a top 25 bank, according to whatever standard you're top 25?" But he was like, "We can't guarantee anything, but we'll push you to the hardest. We're going to give you the best training." And I felt like Wall Street Mastermind was really genuine. And also, like I said, from a pricing perspective, I feel like although you're spending money, but like the reward that you're going to get out of this program, like landing an offer, for example, like my sign-on bonus basically covers everything at like twice of the tuition that I have to pay for Wall Street Mastermind. Like the ROI just crazy. And if you apply like expected value equation towards the outcome, like it's a no-brainer to join Wall Street Mastermind. So
Yeah.
I think from both everything provided, I think it's a great program.
Gotcha. Wow, that's a lot of interesting stuff that I want to ask you about there. I've heard of these. I mean, I know some of these other Chinese recruiting agencies that you're talking about.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I know they have like different packages and stuff. I think because I've had some
Hmm.
clients that have come over to Wall Street Mastermind after
Wow.
with one of those agencies, and then they didn't really get
Hmm.
what was, I guess, promised. And
Hmm.
and some of them were shelled out like, I don't know, 20, 30 grand, right?
Exactly.
And in my mind it was wild because I was like, wow, like everybody
Hmm.
tells, everybody tells me I'm expensive, but then like these guys maybe like I'm undercharging or something.
Exactly.
Especially if we're delivering better results than they are.
Hmm.
But I mean that's besides the point, right? Like I think um to your point though, you mentioned a point about like the culture, you feeling like the culture being a better fit. And so like, are you just referring to the fact that like we didn't just, just try to tell you whatever you wanted to hear and promise the world and say how for sure we'll get you into Goldman Sachs, whatever, just to get you to buy the program? Or like, what are you referring to there?
Yeah, so when I was talking to like other institution, I feel like some of them gave me like a like a vibe, like condescending vibe, because when I was reaching out to them as a junior, they were basically like, "Oh yeah, like forget about it, like there's no chance. You might as well like I don't know, like you probably should have came to us like a little bit earlier." And also I feel like those type of agencies are more opaque. Like for example, everybody's kind of competing on their own, but from Wall Street Mastermind, what I like is like the wolf pack mentality.
Yeah.
Like you have like one of the things that people don't appreciate is the fact that Sam, like you're literally out on every single social media platform. Like how many like look at mergers and acquisition, looking at Wall Street Oasis. Maybe Wall Street Oasis is a little bit more transparent because Patrick's always on different type of interviews. But a lot of these type of institutions or career prep programs are very opaque. You don't even know who the guy is like running these programs like in real life. You know that their like name might be even fake. You know, like that didn't really felt right to me.
Yeah.
For Wall Street Mastermind, I felt like you gave us so much like teasers, you know, like you upload all these videos, you know, like that we ask in office hours. Honestly, like you just get so much value even if you're not in the program. And
Yeah.
I felt like at the time I just thought, oh, Sam must be like a great guy, you know, like I mean honestly, because like it's not to your benefit if you're releasing so much free stuff, you know, like a lot of the free stuff has so much value that people actually have to join the program to get it. So I think for these factors, I feel like I just vibe a little bit better with Wall Street Mastermind, and yeah, and
Gotcha.
that's
Gotcha. That makes sense. I think, I mean, look, I'm a big believer on, abundance mindset, right? So
yep.
I really think that like the more you just put out into this world, like, you know, it comes back tenfold, right? And you just kind of proved my point, because if I did the opposite and just kept everything behind a paywall, then maybe you wouldn't be in this program right now, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think the other more important point that you mentioned is the on the culture point that I really like is the Wolfpack mentality versus like, you know, you're competing against all the other clients, right? Like,
Right,
you know,
exactly.
programs like, I mean, in fact, I would say based on my understanding, those Chinese agencies, they're operating on a much greater scale than we are, and they actually have a lot more clients than we do, and
Yeah.
they're more like almost like a giant enterprise, whereas I feel like we're still kind of boutiquey, right?
Right.
And just like but all of their clients are kind of just like competing with each other. They don't really help each other out. Whereas in Wall Street Platform, I really like the fact that everyone can talk to each other. Everyone is communicating, sharing intel, sharing interview questions, sharing recruiting timelines, like job opportunities. And it's just
Yeah.
like a rising tide lifts all boats. But I think also like I've thought about why that is the case. And I think it's because we keep the number of students we work with relatively low. There's no scarcity. Again, like there's enough jobs around for you know everyone in the program if they want it, right? Like I think like I look at the number of people that apply to investment banking every year, and I do the math on how many students we work with each other each year, and I think like we're literally a rounding error. We're like, I don't know, 0.1%. 0.1% or something like that, right? So it's just like, you know, and we're not going for market share, and I think that's actually a good thing, you know. So, but that's really cool though. I think it's funny like that you asked Joseph if we can get you in the top 25 bank, and Joseph said we can't guarantee anything because yeah, you know, it's true though, right? Like nobody can really guarantee anything. Like we don't have a crystal ball, right? That's not the same thing as saying we can't get you into a top 25 bank. But personally, I don't like sitting here and over promising and then under delivering, and then like that creates a bad client experience, right? Whereas if I manage your expectations a little bit and we end up exceeding those expectations like we did in this case, then like you're so much happier, right? Versus like
right.
I told you right off the bat, I was like, hey, we're only gonna get you into like a top 3 bank and nothing else. And then you get into like a top 5 bank and you're like, dude, what the hell? Like, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know, maybe that costs us, you know, some sales in the near term, but I think in the long term, it's just the right thing to do, right?
Absolutely.
But okay, so what like I think the other thing that was really interesting to me too is you mentioned like you already had some mentors in the industry who were already helping you, right? And they were doing mock interviews with you and giving you advice on your interview answers, and seemingly on the surface like a lot of the same things that you would be doing in Wall Street Mastermind, except I'm assuming those mentors are doing it for free, right? So
Right.
like, why not just keep doing that? Because like we get that a lot too from people who are like, oh, I already
Mhm,
have so and so person who's like mentoring me, so I don't need your help.
mhm,
Right. Like,
right.
was there even
Mhm,
a difference between whatever you were doing over there and whatever you like? I'm sure
mhm,
whatever your mentors were doing for you was still really helpful, right? Like also they're
mhm,
taking the time out of their day to help you for free. And so I'm sure you're super grateful for them doing that. And there's like nothing, there's nothing wrong with that. But like, why would you
mhm.
want to pay for something that's seemingly similar? Or did you know it was going to be different in some way? Or like, what was the mindset there?
Yeah, I feel like there's like two components. Like first, I think you kind of mentioned this in some of your videos, but if you have a mentor like and they're doing it for free, like for me at least, it's very hard to like go repetitively and ask them for help like again and again. Like it might be good to just like ask them for feedback for once and then like they give you some direction and you update them on your processes. But oftentimes in recruiting, it's not like a one like you kind of do your story once and then that's it. Like you go into interviews and then like you're gonna ace them all. Like oftentimes you're gonna have a lot of different feedback. For example, I think in some of your videos with one of the student, I think like some banks prefer like the stories to be shorter. Some banks like the personal aspect a little bit more. So I feel like having this 24/7 support, like I can just message you like anytime I want, and like I also message Mindy a ton. I'm not sure if you know, but like Mindy actually helped me a ton too. But just having these type of network in the like on the clock, it's something different. Like you obviously you have to pay for it. Obviously, it's not going to be free. And this is also like a career wise support. Like for example, a lot of the alums still stay in the Slack channel. Like we're still going to be remembered. One day maybe I joined the Alpha program too. Who knows if I want to do private equity in the future. But I feel like just having that support system and that network, it's obviously worth way more than just hiring some mentors to do your behavioral stories, which is not what this program is only about. And the second part about why Wall Street Mastermind, I think, is really having the informational edge because in recruiting, even like if you're a top candidate, like a lot of these processes are opaque. And you really don't know what's really happening behind the box. It's kind of like a dark portal, like you submit your resume, you got referrals, but like what's next? And I feel like in this community, like since you're so well connected, Sam, like a lot of these alum will just like tell you like, oh, what the processes are like, when they are conducting interviews. And like for example, like the past interview question bank, like that's probably one of the most OP thing you can find on the planet. Like I don't care what you say. Um, like sometimes I just felt like like you're cheating in a way in recruiting. But anyways, in a realistic sense, I feel like the information you get from Wall Street Mastermind is just different than just having some mentors at like these type of banks. And it's really like like the name said, like mastermind. It's like a great host with different tentacles. So much help and support in the program. So I think the price is well justified. For everything you're intaking.
I think your point about, I mean, both the network and the information edge point, I think those are really, really good points. I mean, in terms of information edge, especially since, well, I'm sure we'll get into this, but like
Mm-hmm.
we're recruiting for full-time
Mm-hmm.
opportunities and not for summer opportunities. And
Mm-hmm.
full-time, some of our audience might not know this, but like those processes are even way more opaque than like the
Oh
summer
yeah.
processes because
Mm-hmm.
you don't know who's actually hiring for full-time a lot of the times. Like
Mm-hmm.
the the banks always try to fill up their full-time classes with the summer interns first, and then
Mm-hmm.
most of the groups get completely filled up before full-time even starts, and then like some groups might have like one opening or two openings that
Mm-hmm.
are filled somehow, and then they'll go out and try to fill the spots, but because they only need to fill one or two spots, they're not like, a lot of times they're not posting these jobs on their website.
Mm-hmm.
They're not like publicly recruiting for it. You're not going to find it on LinkedIn. Like you have to know that they're recruiting or have
Mm-hmm.
networked with the right people in the right places to even be looped in,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so like
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
that's where like being a part of a network like this with a lot of bankers that are already, working at these firms, have gone to the program, that are program
Mm-hmm.
alumni who are super willing to like help the younger students, that can be a huge help, right? And then also even
Mm-hmm.
sometimes like not even alumni, like I mean, even recently we get messages from um people who just finished their summer internships, and
Mm-hmm.
they know whether their groups are going to have openings or not because how
Mm-hmm.
many people got offers and they know who took it and who didn't, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh
And
yeah.
so like being in that information flow is a huge advantage. Like a lot of times there's a difference between you even finding out about an opportunity versus not, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
um and then I think like with joining a professional network, like I always tell people like, yes, our first priority is to get you a job, but I think like
Mm-hmm.
the second or maybe some I would argue just as valuable, but like the second most valuable thing you're going to get out of this program is the people you're going to meet and the network that you're going to develop. And
Mm-hmm.
in the future, you never know
Mm-hmm.
who in this network is going to, help you get a job somewhere or refer you for something.
Absolutely.
Or,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone in this program is going to go on to do really amazing things and work at some really amazing places. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of a similar concept to how people pay a lot of money to go to business school, to go
Yeah,
to
exactly.
top business schools, so that they
Mm-hmm.
can meet other HBS grads, GSB grads, and people like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like that's very, very valuable in the long run, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I think those are all great points. I guess how did you? So let's talk about like the full time recruiting process for a second, because
Mm-hmm.
especially this year, as the time we're recording this in late 2022, like you were recruiting for a 2023 start date,
Mm-hmm.
full time opportunities. Now we're in a current market environment, inflation's going crazy, the Fed is raising rates, stock market
Mm-hmm.
mostly down for the
Mm-hmm.
first 9 months of this year. Um,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
and so like a lot of the banks, when they hired their summer 2022 interns, they did that back in like as early as late 2020, early 2021. And back then
Mm-hmm.
the market was totally different and it was very hot.
Mm-hmm.
Deal flow was super strong. And then so they hired a bunch of interns.
Mm-hmm.
And like this summer, they realized, oh, we can't bring all these interns back. So most banks cut back on hiring. And so what we saw was offer rate was a lot lower, going from summer to full
Mm-hmm.
time. And then that has ripple effects because then now there's all these interns on the street that didn't get a return offer that are now also looking for jobs for full time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then there are already fewer full time opportunities available in the first place. So like, walk us through how you navigated through like what was your experience going through
Mm-hmm.
the recruiting cycle? Like were you worried that hey, there might just not be enough opportunity? And also
Mm-hmm.
like how did you ultimately even like find out about the opportunity that you ended up getting? Like was that just through your networking or did they actually post a job online or how did you do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, to say I was worried must be an understatement. During my summer internship, like all of our interns were like crapping our pants. Like especially I told you about they're kind of outsourcing some of their assets, to external parties, which essentially reduces headcount need at the firm. So I kind of follow kind of your instruction, and one thing I think I did well is like coming to you guys early before the internship even started. So I think I asked a lot of questions like, oh, when I should start networking, the appropriate time frame. So like uh, you're not perceived as somebody who doesn't even want to give their internship a try, and I think that's really really beneficial. And I was able to like, honestly, like the thing that Christian put together, like the VBA thing was huge because I was basically able to like pump out a lot of emails and then get crazy responses that I could never thought before.
Hmm.
And I was able to connect with bankers across the street, whether that's bulge bracket, independent advisory firms, middle market. And the consensus at the time was like they don't know if they're going to hire at the end of the summer, and if they do, it's probably going to be like single digit spots. And obviously, I kind of expected that coming in, and I knew I had to work hard. But a lot of the times, like I feel like in life and recruiting, in a sense, it's very serendipitous in a way. Like just like life, you will never know where you're gonna go next and what might take you and what might not. And I have a lot of friends who like, let's say they network really, really well with the bank, but they didn't even get a first round interview. And sometimes like they don't even network and they got a full-time offer. And I feel like the latter kind of applies to me a little bit because I actually found out the opportunity for the independent advisory firm through Wall Street Mastermind. I think one of the alum actually works there. He was like, "Oh, you have until blah 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 day to network, right?" But that firm I'm currently going to has very very little alum. I think I might be the third guy they ever hired in the past 5 years, um, according to LinkedIn. So
Wow. From Stern.
exactly. Yes. Yeah. But definitely that was very hard for me to network when I was trying to send cold emails because like you're not like for example like you don't have a alum at those type of banks, right? So but I guess I was very fortunate to say the least because I was able to just apply, and they gave me an interview and quickly moved on to Super Day. Like I think I told you about the turnaround time was like from first round to like the time I received first round invite to my offer was a week. Like it was so quick. But in retrospect, I didn't really expect much going into that interview. I just tried to prep myself as much as possible. I remember I had that mock with you, and like we really talked about some of the things I should look out for the group I was recruiting for, and ultimately it worked out beautifully. But if that didn't work out, I still have some contacts that are willing to pull for me for some like top MMs like low BBs in the fall. Like I think some of them were saying they might have more opening in October and that type of stuff. So I wasn't too worried to be honest, but I was obviously sketching because the economy is so bad and like you just can't ignore that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Wow. So, okay. So basically, you found out about this opportunity through the Wall Street Mastermind Network, and then you got into the process, and the entire thing happened from that point to offer all within a week, right? Which actually, like,
Mm-hmm,
I think might be surprising for some people, but it's
mm-hmm,
pretty in line with my experience in terms of what happens with full time because a lot of these, like, again, they're only trying to fill. I mean, in your case, your group, were you the only person to hire, or how many spots were they trying to fill?
probably. I
Yeah.
think just one.
So it's like they're trying to fill one spot, right? And so
Mm-hmm,
you don't need to run this like long, drawn out process. Um,
mm-hmm,
when I recruited for full time, coming out of Bear Stearns, it was the same thing. Like, I mean, I ended up at DB,
mm-hmm,
not as good of a bank as where you're ending up, but even then, like the group that I was interviewing for, they had one spot, and then
mm-hmm,
we had I think 12 people at the Super Day going for that
mm-hmm,
one spot, and it's like
mm-hmm.
you don't need to run more than one Super Day with 12 candidates. Like they can find one, they can find one person that they like out of 12 people, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
and so like with full time, it's like there's even more urgency. It's almost like if you blink, you'll miss stuff, right? Like a
Mm-hmm,
lot of people out there didn't even know that this opportunity existed, and they might still be like
mm-hmm,
networking and trying to figure out like where they should be applying to, and then like this opportunity is gone,
mm-hmm,
right? And
mm-hmm.
that's it. So
Exactly.
I think like that's that's like something that people really need to understand. Just like, hey, you need to have a sense of urgency, right?
Mm-hmm,
Now the interview prep stuff. It sounds like then you actually did most of your prep prior to starting your internship. Then is that right? And you obviously did a little bit of brushing up afterwards too. But
mm-hmm,
like,
mm-hmm.
it was
Yeah.
you were cramped since you joined in late April. You had time to actually
Mm-hmm,
do a lot of the prep, like, and you didn't have to wait
mm-hmm.
until the last minute, or how did you kind of handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like in my experiences, the biggest prep you have to do for these type of finance interview is your behaviorals. Like I said earlier, like the technicals like check the boxes, but the behavioral wins you the offer. So like you really have to think about why you're here. And honestly, I'm not like a really great storyteller. So like if I want to make a really good story, I have to start very early. So when I first joined the program, I went through the behavior modules and I really try to listen, like, like one of some of the successful students, like how they navigate their story, how they articulate their stories, and also join every single mock interview hot seat and office hours. Like you can just compare and get ideas in a sense. So I think from April to the time leading up to my internship, I was mainly like thinking about behavioral answers, like why, because my story is going to change given my summer internship in asset management. So I was doing a lot of that prep. And for technicals, because I had some sort of foundation and I also go to a business school that has a strong finance program, it's always easier for me to pick up technicals in a shorter time span. I think I started really like studying technicals starting like maybe late July. And that kind of includes like going through your modules, like going through some sample questions in the typical banking guides, and just going through some of the past questions I encountered in banking interviews in a sense. And kind of those combined like help me to prep for banking interviews.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. So what was like the biggest difference with your behavioral science? Because I've heard you mention that a couple times now.
Mm-hmm.
You said that in hindsight, your stories back then uh weren't very good at all. And obviously this time it sounds like whatever you said for your stories ended up working out. So like
Mm-hmm.
what was the biggest change? And also like can you help people understand how your answers could change so much? Because I think in most people's minds, when they like kind of envision working on their behavioral answers, I think most people
Mm-hmm.
feel like there's not that much to do, right? Like you come up with your
Mm-hmm.
answers that you want to use. And I would dare say like for most people, the first draft of their answer is pretty close to the final draft. And then they
Mm-hmm.
and they just
Exactly.
and they just kind of rehearse that and practice that,
Mm-hmm.
memorize it, and then make sure they know how you like. So like,
Mm-hmm.
what is there to actually do on the behavioral side? Like most people, I feel like they worry
Mm-hmm.
about the technical side, but not the
Mm-hmm.
behavioral side. So like,
Mm-hmm.
can you kind of shed some light on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me at least, I growing up like I wasn't a good storyteller. So in order to make a story for someone like me that sounds appealing, I have to go really personal. And honestly, back then when I was going through the recruiting process, I wasn't really going personal at all. I felt like I was following like the online format, like if you go on mergers and acquisition, it will tell you, oh, use Spark, like plug and play, right? There you go. And you like you said, like memorize them and like know when to use them. Sure. But honestly, like in an interview room, like maybe like half of the candidates are doing the same thing. And I think what you kind of taught me and what Mindy taught me was like go personal. Like if you have some type of life experiences, like even that's like, that evolves with life and death, like embarrassment or anything like that. Like anything that can make yourself sound more like a person rehearsing a script is really going to add a lot of value. And in particular, I think what I did well in my interview at the place I ultimately got offer at is that I try to be really, really genuine. Like everything I said was true, and I made sure that I articulate a story that backs every single like situation question, and also in deals. For example, in one of the deals I was talking about, I was saying like how I was able to be affected by the outcome of the deal, right? And I kind of gave like a history of why I think it might be beneficial to someone like me. So honestly, like just going really, really personal. And I guess for anyone who's listening now, like if you're just a boring guy like me, like can't really tell an interesting story, like just try to be personal and be genuine. And I think ultimately, with Sam's help and like also tons of edits, you will come across as polished and people will like you. But that's my take on behaviors.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense, man. So what did you find like was the full-time interview process very similar to your summer interview processes, or was it like pretty different? Was it like the type of questions that they asked, was it like
Mm-hmm.
about the same or more difficult, or where does that shake out?
Yeah, honestly, like they're pretty similar. Because I did help one of my friend, or I didn't help, but like I was helping them to mock his full-time interview last year. And from what I was hearing, like a lot of the questions are just a similar difficulty as summer analyst. But I feel like the biggest driver is kind of like why you're here, like why do you want to join our bank? Like why do you want to do investment banking full time? And that kind of goes back to the behavioral part, and being personal really gonna add the color because in retrospect they can always teach you technicals, and as long as you come across as a person who's like willing to learn, even if you get a technical wrong in interviews like me, but but ultimately, I think what really differentiates people is the behavior. Like technicals are same difficulty for full time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Makes sense, man. So I guess man, I feel like I've already asked you so many questions, but it's a really good interview. The last question
Yeah,
that I
likewise.
would like to ask is, do you have like a piece of advice that maybe really helped you a lot
Hmm.
along the way? Maybe someone shared a piece of advice with you or gave you some tip or trick or whatever. Anything like that
Hmm.
that you want to kind of pass down to other people who are maybe now still going through the process or about to go through the process themselves?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I actually wrote down for your advice because I think in some of your previous interview you asked that, and I feel like it would be good to like let the listener knows. So I think the first advice I got from somebody who works in banking, and I think it might be beneficial to share with audience, is that you should probably go somewhere that you feel belong in your conversations, and also for your interaction you felt welcome, because a lot of the times like it's good to break in, right? Let's say if you have only one offer and if that's the only thing you get, right? Like you have to stick with it. But if you have the choice, right, always like recruit for banks and talk to people who you find that are most similar to you, and like you find easier time to have culture. And that's ultimately why I joined Wall Street Mastermind, because I feel like mental health is such a big thing in our life and it really affects your recruiting processes. For example, I had a call with the one of our alum in some bank, and that experience was probably one of the worst I ever had. Literally got grilled to the bones, and I was like, I'm not applying to that bank at all. So well, like it has downsides, but I feel like that really matters to me, and I felt like this is a great advice that someone who was more senior to me shared to me. So I felt that might be great for your recruiting processes. And the second advice, I think people have to understand that recruiting is highly luck dependent. Like it doesn't matter if you go to a target school or non-target school, because for target school you're competing with people who are within your school, and that gets really really toxic. And unless you're like the best of the best in your class, like that's really hard. And also from a non-target, like it's hard to break in, but like also like just know that you're competing with other non-targets. So I feel like in that sense, there's a lot more randomness in recruiting, and something that's really really out of your reach and control. So don't kind of like kill yourself over like not acing an interview. Like me, I failed probably like 12 interviews before I actually got an offer. And I guess the last advice I want to share is like always start early and like think about why you're doing something in your life. For example, like even if you want to do investment banking for money or like the exit opportunities for private equity, like have that really really straight to you like early on. Don't just be like, oh, because my friend is doing banking and I want to jump the train with them, but like you don't really understand what the job entails. If you're doing something, might as well learn about it and be passionate about it, at least for the time you're recruiting. And just don't give up, because my friends, like they go into Goldman TNT and they got rejected by Nomura, you know, like like it doesn't matter about rejection, but you just have to keep your heads down and keep going. But yeah, those are my advice, and I hope everybody good luck in their recruiting processes.
That's really, really good advice, man. So I asked for one and you gave us three. So I gotta thank you for that. But look, guys, if you guys are, still with us and still listening, and maybe you're going through a similar process where you intern elsewhere in finance and you're trying to make a pivot into investment banking, or maybe you're just someone who's trying to recruit for banking full time. Maybe you tried recruiting on your own before already and didn't quite make it in. Like whatever may be whatever may be the case, if you feel like you want to take another crack at recruiting for banking, and you want to break in regardless of the market conditions, and you just want to put your best foot forward, and you want to, get access to the community and the network that we built here, which is going to be tremendously helpful for you, then I want to encourage you to reach out and schedule a time to speak with our team. In fact, like before you even speak with our team, what we do now is you can actually reach out and schedule a time speak with one of the alums that have already gone through our program first. So this is typically like an upperclassman who's already gotten an offer, and we call it a virtual coffee chat. It's basically just like any other networking call you have. You can, ask the upperclassmen for advice on whatever you want. Their recruiting experience, you know, how they got their offer. You know, you can ask them about the program, like whatever it is that you want to know about. And then based on that, you know, if after the conversation you're still interested in working with us and getting our help, then you know, the alum can help set you up for a follow call with our team where we can learn more about what it is that you need help with and figure out if or how we can help. It's because we can't really help everyone. We don't have the capacity, nor are we like the best fit to help everyone. But you know, if we can't help you, definitely happy to do what we can. If we can't help you at a minimum, we'll give you some advice on what we think you should do, you know, instead, right? And so, if you're interested in, you know, just having that initial coffee chat with the alum, you can go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street is abbreviated to ST, so it's wallstmastermind.com/apply, and we look forward to talking to you guys. All right. With that said, John, I want to thank you again for taking the time to talk to us. Like I said, I think this is an amazing interview with a lot of really good insights that I think you know, our listeners are really going to benefit from. So you know, I just want to congratulate you again on a really amazing offer, especially
Thank
in
you,
the
Sam.
environment. And I think you completely deserving, by the way. And so can't wait to see, you know, all the success that you have ahead of you, man.
Absolutely, Sam. Thank you so much for everything and putting this program together. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up here, and thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back with more of these for you guys in the near future, and until next time. All right.